Joe Hodas, CMO Dixie Elixirs, sits down and takes us through his journey to Dixie, how he got here, what he's doing here now, and finally where Dixie is headed. Good conversation. Really appreciate Joe's time. He also took us on a tour, which you might already know, and if you don't, stay tuned. So Joe Hodas, I don't know which way we're going to load him, but you just did the tour with us. That might come up after we actually speak right now. Who knows? But thank you for showing me the place.
Do you really think that someone's going to want to listen to me for an hour?
There's one person.
At least one.
You are the CMO of Dixie Elixirs. You are delivering the future of cannabis, one product at a time, if you will. You have been doing this for a year and a half, which we discussed is a long time in this industry. You are a marketing guy by trade. You PR, advertising, marketing. Right. You know what you're doing as far as marketing in cannabis.
Some days.
So there are folks that run cannabis companies that will certainly be interested in hearing what you do, and there are folks that are patients that are interested in hearing about your product, and there are investors that are interested in what you have to say about how it's going here at Dixie, and then there are just general enthusiasts who think that this is fun.
Right.
So these are the people I think that will be interested in what
all 5 of them?
Yeah, all 5 of them. That's exactly right. That's exactly it. So, I kind of just did the overview, and you just have made it your business to mostly exist in really cool towns. So you're in Denver now, and you went to school in Austin.
That's right. Yeah. I spent, unfortunately, I did spend from age 5 until age 18 in Houston. So that kind of negates the cool city factor. But
you've been making up for that ever since.
I went to school at the University of Texas, lived in Austin for a year after that. And the rest of my life has been in Colorado. So most of it in Colorado.
Okay. Well, let's do this one at a time. So Houston, 5 to 18, what kind of town is that to live in as a person?
It's a lot different town now than it was then. I mean, when I was growing up, my estimation, the way I would kind of qualify Houston is it was really hot, really humid, fairly closed-minded in a number of ways. Texas in the 70s and 80s wasn't the most open-minded of places. And, I think it, was probably just like any other city in that it was a very large city, but my portion of it was fairly small in terms of my neighborhood, the school I went to, and the activities I did in and around my area.
A to B to C was all enclosed, so to speak. Fair enough. Why did you, so you left at age 18 to go to college?
Yeah, to go to University of Texas. Right. And, it's one of those scenarios where you're close enough to home that you can visit mom and dad pretty easily, but you're far enough away that you feel like you're actually, away. So, going to UT, right? Mm-hmm. That's the dream, isn't it? Hook 'em horns. People love that place. It's a great school. It's huge. I think it's number 2 or 3 in terms of size in the country. But there again, you make your world what you make of it, right? So, while it's a huge school, my universe was, the universe that I made. So I never felt like I was in, some gigantic pool of people.
Unless you went to a football game.
Football games are big. Texas football is huge. And so that stadium, I think they've expanded it since I went there. I think it probably holds close to 100,000 now.
Yeah. That's ridiculous to have that many people in one place. Yeah. But
what did you wearing burnt orange, by the way?
That's it. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Game day. So what did you take if hot and humid is what you took from Houston, and please let me get out of here, which is what most 18-year-olds want to do anyway, in whatever their hometown is. What did you take away from UT? What was it?
That's an interesting question. What did I take away from UT? I guess an appreciation for lifestyle, in the sense that Austin is a very lifestyle-oriented city. There's a lot of outdoor activity. There's a lot of great food. They're known for beer and live music and all kinds of fun stuff. And I think that kind of became part of my ethos as well, which is, live life to its fullest and take advantage of all those things.
Right. So, yes, definitely play hard. As far as work hard, what was your major?
Well, I didn't work that hard, so I was an English major.
Okay, so you got that down. You're exhibiting your ability as we speak.
Little did I know that ultimately that maybe having an English background would benefit my career. I didn't really think about it at the time, and in fact, I'll tell you that in terms of my kids now, I will have different advice and direction for them than maybe the path I went, which I guess is probably typical for most parents. But have an idea, know what you want to do. Go in for being that doctor, that lawyer, that whatever the MBA is, and not go with a liberal arts degree like English, because that really doesn't set you up for much.
You have the vision early on, so that you can deliver on that, as opposed to English seems like a good idea.
Yeah, I like to read. Sure, let's do English.
But then you're a man of words, right? PR and advertising and marketing is
I am, but I didn't know that at the time. I guess. I guess you could say that maybe I did know it, and that's why I gravitated towards English. I don't think so. I think I gravitated towards English because I did like literature and popular culture and things like that. But I didn't think that I'd be leveraging that for a career. So.
But then you had to, because you graduated eventually.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I had to. Well, and I spent. After I graduated, I went to Boulder.
You went straight to Boulder.
Went straight to Boulder. Actually. Okay. Two buddies and I, we kind of took a map and we just kind of put blindfolds on and we put a finger down and we said, we're going to move somewhere. And it was close enough to Boulder. We said, okay, let's move to Boulder. And
just like that, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, really. Well, I'd been out once or twice to Colorado for skiing.
Okay.
Which I only took up actually in college. I had never skied before.
Right.
And so we went to Boulder, and I bartended and had a great time. Being 22 and a bartender, so
that's the life right there.
That was fun, skiing and bartending. And then I moved back to Austin, where my now wife was finishing her graduate degree in social work. And we kind of made a deal before I left for Austin, because we dated in college, but it was one of those scenes where, at that point you're either getting married or you're breaking up, one or the other. And I just said, look, I'm going to go to Boulder. Let's stay in touch. I love you, but I'm not ready to get married yet.
Right.
So we stayed in touch. She said, okay, you can go to Boulder, but you're going to come back here to Austin and give this a chance too. And somehow I listened to her, and I moved back to Austin.
Because you're a smart guy is what it is.
Well, actually, in hindsight, yes. But once again, I didn't know at the time.
Right.
That's the story of my life, actually. You can look back at every, and probably this is true for most people, not just me, but you can look back at everything you do and see the path and why you went that way, but you might not have known it at the time.
Yeah.
So I moved back to Austin. Didn't work out really well. I was bartending at night. She was at school during the day, and just was not a good pairing.
Never at home together.
Yeah, never home. Yeah. She's stressed with school, and I'm interested in going out and having fun. And so I moved to Houston again for a short period of time. Did the typical, move back in with your parents thing for a bit,
right.
A couple months. And then she and I ended up going to Europe together on a backpacking trip. She invited me to go. Her graduation gift from her folks was to go to Europe.
Oh, wow.
She could invite a friend. She invited me.
You were the friend.
I said, you sure you want to do that? Doesn't seem like a good idea for you. And she said, yep, I want to go with you. And that's kind of where it all happened. And we fell back in love and moved to Denver, where I was going to go to graduate school for mass communications. And the rest, as they say, is history.
All right. So University of Denver for mass communications, but we've got to talk about this Europe trip. I mean,
it was 5 weeks.
5 weeks. What stops did you hit?
We went everywhere from France to like the French Riviera, that kind of area, as well as a little bit of Paris.
Yeah.
Went to Italy, went to Greece, went to Czechoslovakia, went to Germany. The Germany piece was a little bit accidental, and this is one of my wife's favorite stories still to this day, because we didn't understand the train system very well. We had a Euro pass, you could go anywhere you want, and we didn't understand the train system very well, and it looked like there was two trains, one that looked like it was going to Germany, one that looked like it was going to Czechoslovakia, and my wife said, "Are you sure that this train doesn't split?" And I very confidently said, "That's ridiculous. Trains don't split in the middle of the night. Like, how could that happen?"
That's ridiculous.
So we go to bed and sleep in the sleeper car because it's a long trip, and we wake up in Weimar, Germany, And it was a little bit of a shock, me being a Jew and, being on a train in Germany. And I wake up to German accents. It was a little weird, but.
Because this is it. You said Czechoslovakia, and
we thought we were going to Czech.
But so this must be the late 80s, early 90s. It has to be.
Early 90s, 93.
Yeah. So because that's not what that's called anymore, is the point.
Well, right. It's called Czech Republic.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So we were going to Prague. I'll put it that way.
There you go.
And but we ended up in Germany instead.
Indeed.
For a day or two until we got back to Prague.
Did anyone offer you some pork?
No.
Because if they do, what they do is it sounds like they're yelling at you. They go, "Swine!" But that's a different story for a different day.
Right.
That's just further to your earlier point. Anyway, so, those were the stops along the way. And then what? And then you came back. Where was it? Where was the moment of, oh, wait, I'm in love with her?
I don't know that it was a singular moment, but I think, for anyone who's married or has a very serious relationship, I think when you realize that you can travel together in a foreign country for 5 weeks, you figure, okay, that's someone I can get along with, because, there's stressful stuff like showing up in a country, not knowing where the youth hostel is, no one speaks your language, how are you going to get there, there's a number of different challenges you face along the way. And if you can face those together without completely ripping each other apart, it's probably a pretty good pairing. So.
Yeah, that's a sign at least. Yeah. All right, so you come back, University of Denver, mass communications degree. Where did this idea come up? I mean, was this just like, I could probably do that with the English degree, or was there further thinking at this point?
Not a whole lot of further thinking. It was actually, it was which program requires the least amount of testing up front. So I did the GRE, and I think I did okay on that. I could not do the LSAT. I looked at doing that. I couldn't do the English GRE because that was impossibly difficult. So the idea of becoming an English professor was eliminated. And, I was fairly glib of tongue already at that point. And so, it seemed like, okay, communications, sure. And there's a program in Denver. I think literally at the time there were two mass communications programs. One was at Michigan State. One was at the University of Denver. I got into both. But Denver seemed like a much better option of a place to be. So
you had been right down the block in Boulder. You knew kind of the culture of different cities, but it's a similar type of vibe.
And you're by the mountains and on all the things that I really love. So
you can still ski.
Exactly.
There we go. And so then, when does Ogilvy happen? Was that right out of school?
So 2 years in mass communications, graduate school. Working while I'm there, but in doing youth group stuff and, not really anything related to my career and or what I'm doing now, certainly. And I graduated, or I was actually, I started working in the mass communications department of the school, so doing their public relations work for the University of Denver. Mm-hmm. That's where I kind of got my feet wet and was able to put a few things on my resume. Began doing really like a 3-month contract basis for a different agency. Mm-hmm. And while I was doing, actually I remember very vividly, it was my first kind of real job in PR, and I was hawking electric toothbrushes.
Oh, sure.
So that was my big
some
account.
People love those things.
It was Sonicare, so that was like my big account.
Yeah.
I was busy trying to pitch people on writing about it or doing programs on like giveaway programs for Sonicare toothbrushes. But I got a call from this startup agency called Alexander Communications. They were focused on technology, and this was the very beginning of the tech boom. So this was like 96, 97.
Right.
Small office. I was one of the first couple of people there. That organization grew over the 3 years I was there and eventually merged with Ogilvy, which is one of the larger firms in the country.
Sure.
And
probably was purchased or was consumed by Ogilvy as opposed to
right. Unfortunately, though, I was still low enough level wise that I didn't get any benefit from that. But one of the things that it did is that in the course of that career path, I worked for a company that eventually was sold to Lucent Technologies for like $1 billion, and they had no customers, no revenue, and I thought, I'm on the wrong side of the equation. I need to be with a company that's being bought,
right?
Versus helping them get bought, because the only thing they had was PR. That was, they could show up articles and say, look, we were, covered here.
Yeah.
And they were bought for $1 billion. So I went looking for a pre-IPO company. This is again during the first tech boom. Everyone's going public. Technology's huge, and found one. Became their director of communications.
Is that Verado?
That was Verado.
All right.
Which was a managed services and hosting company, which now is commonplace and it happens regularly. But back then we were pitching this vision of, imagine you're getting all of your data and technology wirelessly, and you can see movies on demand and this and that and the other. But little did I know that really the technology just wasn't there in 2001, 2002. Right. So I spent 3 years there. We went public. Actually, on paper, made a decent amount of money, but the market crashed about 3 weeks after we went public, and so that all kind of disappeared. But I also became pretty disillusioned. I was kind of like, oh, we've been pushing this company for 3 years, and we really didn't have anything. It was vaporware, right. But it was big. We had 1,000 employees, and I say vaporware. I mean, it's not as if we had a product, we had a company, but
you're generalizing.
We weren't quite where we needed to be in order to be a viable technology. Now, those companies exist everywhere, and it's commonplace to have a hosted data center and all that good stuff.
Sure.
But,
you were too early.
Yeah, we were too early.
Absolutely. So then Frontier, and you spent some time with Frontier, right?
Yeah, I had a couple of weird little stops in between there, but and actually, well, one of them is important. It kind of ties to the whole idea of looking backwards. But two things occurred. So I became good friends with my boss from Verado, and when we both left there, I spent a year working for a childhood friend, his family's company. They sold lighting to apartment developments around the country, and they had a big presence. They had a lot of projects here in Colorado and the Western United States. And so I was their VP of sales for the Western U.S. And it's a family business, very small. I didn't enjoy it. The construction industry is miserable for anyone who's ever been in it. I find at least a lot of just lying, rude people, and it just wasn't where I wanted to be. But my two things occurred in that 1 year period. One, we had our first kid, so I was able to actually work from home and be home with him and my wife when he was born. And secondly, my dad unfortunately became very sick and passed away in that time frame. And he lived in Houston, which is where the company was located. So I was able to travel back and forth a lot and see him and
be with him. Yeah, be with him at that point.
Which probably wouldn't have happened if I wasn't working at that company at the time.
Absolutely.
So it was only 1 year stint, but two important things happened in that period. And then from there, I moved for 6 months to a company called Video Professor, which people may or may not know Video Professor.
The guy on TV is.
Yeah, that's
that guy.
And it was in Lakewood. Here was where they were headquartered. And I spent 6 months there. But 2 months after I started, I got a call from my former boss at the tech company. And he'd been interviewing at Frontier, and he chose to take a different job. And he said, look, I think you need to talk to these guys. I think it'd be a great job for you. And that began a 4-month interview process with Frontier. Ultimately, I left Video Professor, thank goodness, because
begrudgingly.
It's a long, sad story there. But
do we want to do that, or we just let that one go?
We'll just let that one go.
Okay.
They no longer exist, and
right.
I think the world's a better place for it.
Fair enough.
And I went to Frontier and spent 5 years there. Heading up their communications, investor relations, internal communications, and learned the airline industry, which actually set me up very well for the job I'm in currently, because there's a lot of crisis communications, a lot of twists and turns, big learning curve in terms of understanding all the ins and outs and the various parts and pieces of the industry. So
fair amount of regulations as well.
Fair amount of regulations. There's a number of different government agencies that are involved in the airline industry. So it was great training ground for anything I was going to do afterwards. And I probably would have stuck around if not for the fact that they ultimately went bankrupt while I was there. I don't know if I had anything to do with that, but hopefully not.
Let's just say no.
B, it was such a constant churn of crises and issues and I was the only one really handling their communications, and just got exhausting. And so
every day was level red. So fair enough.
So I packed my bags. It's a little airline pun.
Right, sure.
And I went to a private equity firm where I worked at the time, a startup restaurant chain called Smashburger. I think they now have 150 restaurants around the country.
Yeah.
And the same guys own Quiznos as well.
Okay.
So I spent, unfortunately, about 9 months there. Partly because I was being pursued by a different company that gave me a really good opportunity, but partly because, for a number of reasons, philosophically, I just didn't quite gel with the ownership of that organization. So,
but that was retail experience.
Yep.
Which came in
retail
handy.
and big national brand experience, and it was definitely beneficial.
Right.
And I really enjoyed it, and gave me time to make the next move and think about what I wanted to do. I probably, if not for some of these fundamental disagreements, I would have stayed there. I had great people. I enjoyed my job, but just wasn't the right place for me. So.
And then is that direct to here now, or is there one more stop?
No. So I spent 5 years. I went from there to this agency, and the agency, Vladimir Jones.
Oh, this is Vladimir Jones that we're coming to now. Okay, good. Yeah.
That brings the whole thing full circle.
Yeah.
Again, everything in hindsight. I went to Vladimir Jones from Smashburger, and I was executive vice president of what we call channels. I was partner in the agency, and Dixie came along about a year after I was there. A young lady who worked for me had gone to lunch with Tripp Keber, CEO of Dixie, and came back from lunch and said, "Hey, my friend Tripp is starting up this pot soda company. Do we want to talk to them? They sounds like they need some brand work." And I said, "Yeah, that sounds really interesting." This was 2010, so the medical market was just beginning to really shape up.
Sure.
And, people had we had legalized it prior to that, but the commercial infrastructure of it didn't really take shape until then. And so we met with them, and I was intrigued. And as Tripp is known for doing it, seemed bigger and more exciting. He sold it hard. And
wait, Tripp sold it hard?
Yeah, I know, that sounds weird, right? Shocking.
And we know and love Tripp, and Tripp knows it. So anyway, yeah, I'll see him tomorrow night. But anyway,
he. And I bought into it, and I thought, it was a great idea. And sure enough, it was, and we ended up doing the Dixie logo that we currently see today.
Which is brilliant, by the way.
Yeah.
It is so minimalist, and it's so brilliant and beautiful.
I've talked to the guy at my agency who designed it, and I've told him on multiple occasions just how great it is and how people love it here, and it's become iconic for the cannabis industry. Sorry if she puts.
Nah, we're just putting the shades down because it's Friday afternoon. Yeah, absolutely. We love the ancillary noise. It really tells a
it's like an
bigger
NPR
picture.
feeling, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. Then this is what happened. So Tripp, so you
So I got to know Tripp through
yeah,
that. And ultimately did some PR work from it. Actually, it was the first real taste of PR I think that they'd had. We ended up getting a little mention in Time magazine about this new pot soda, in terms of interesting ways that people are consuming cannabis. And, he began to really see the power of public relations. And, we kept in touch. I would go to lunch with him about probably once a quarter, both, just as friends, and then sometimes to provide counsel or advice on, on various things. So they didn't have a big marketing staff at the time. And so thank you. So a lot of this was new.
Yeah.
And so, we'd talk regularly, go to lunch. And I think it kind of all came down to a day that I had just had a really long, rough day with clients, and I was on the phone with him, and I said, "It's too bad you can't afford me because I come work for you." And he said, "Well, let's see if we can figure that out." So that began a probably 6-month courtship period between the two of us, and ultimately in January of 2014, just 2 weeks after legalization took effect, I started at Dixie.
Look at that.
Yeah.
My goodness. And so it was almost a passing comment, or was it?
Well, I'm sure that I had the intent of testing those waters and seeing if that was even an option.
So, but then this is where we've learned along the way, English major just because, you know what I mean? Go to Boulder just because, but now you're starting to have conversations with purpose.
That might be stretching it. I don't know. I still don't have many conversations with purpose, but like this one, for example.
Exactly. No purpose whatsoever. Well, let's get to the purpose of this interview, which is the future of cannabis. You guys are big and bold with the tagline, Dixie, the future of cannabis.
Yeah.
So when did you guys come upon that?
I'm trying to remember, actually. And I don't want to misspeak because, Lindsay, who's our marketing director, and Grit, who's our fabulous agency that we work with, had big parts and pieces of that. But I think it was just prior to me coming here that Tripp and I had been texting about various ways to look at it. And future of cannabis was something that we had, I think, used in passing. And I think, we kind of all agreed like that actually makes sense as maybe kind of a tagline and sort of something that will go with us as we move forward. I can guarantee you I'm not responsible for it, but over the last year and a half, it's really become just synonymous with our brand. It's become part of our mission. Our internal version of that is delivering the future of cannabis. So our employees have that on right here, delivering
lanyards.
The future of cannabis on our lanyards, on our mission, vision, value cards.
Which come right with your ID.
I am the future of cannabis.
There we go.
So it's really become integral to who we are.
what does it mean? In other words, we've got to get product out today. So how does the future of cannabis inform every day?
Well, it's complex. There's a number of layers to it, right? So the way that applies to today and being the future of cannabis, but today, is by focusing on consistency and quality and ensuring that the products we're putting out are products that consumers can benefit from, consumers and patients. So whether you're in the back packaging a product that's going to the shelves today, you still be thinking that you're contributing to the future of cannabis because we're trying to do things right to legitimize the industry, to destigmatize the industry, to ensure that things are done safely and properly. So that in and of itself is delivering the future of cannabis in my mind, but also that that we're constantly thinking about what is the next thing, what's the next delivery system, what's the next piece of science, what's the next way that we can help move things forward. And I mentioned early on when we started doing the tour that we use this facility for education and demystifying the industry. That's a big part of delivering the future of cannabis because if we aren't promoting legalization, if we're not being good stewards of this industry, the future of cannabis will never arrive.
Yeah. That's it. You also have in the mission statement that you read on our tour, there is a reference to global. Mm-hmm. When you guys were building
got to think big.
Yeah. When you guys were building the place, this place that we're sitting in that we just toured, Tripp every time would call it the global headquarters.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean and how are you getting there?
Well, it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, right? I mean, because we're still Colorado, California, kind of U.S.-centric. But we all firmly believe that Colorado is the epicenter of that legalization movement. And as countries around the world view us and see what we're doing and that we're doing it right and we can do it well and that it's actually adding value to our community versus destroying it, we believe that legalization will occur elsewhere. And we have talks on a regular basis with other countries. I've toured, I can't tell you, Japan, Finland, England, Brazil, Chile. I mean, I've toured every, major country pretty much through this facility because from a media perspective or from a legislative or a political perspective because they're interested in what we're doing and how we're doing it. So ultimately, yeah, I'd love to see Dixie be global, to be synonymous with cannabis in every country that you're in. I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow, but that's why it's aspirational. That's why it's something we hope to achieve.
Right. Well, what's you delivering on consistency today? What's next year? So if we're in June of 2015, what is something that's palpable, something that you can touch down the line here? What's the next thing?
Well,
the immediate next thing.
The immediate next thing is there's really two pieces. One, it's continuing to expand our brand nationally. Moving into other markets. We just announced California about 2 weeks ago.
And congratulations on that.
Thank you. We should be on shelves or production will start July 1, so any day. And hopefully another, let's say 3 states by the end of the year that we're going to be in. So that's step one. Take our brand on the Dixie Elixirs and edible side and move into other states. Part two of that, I said step, but really part. Part two of that is launching other brands that fulfill needs that aren't, it's not always about THC. I mean, we're talking about, other cannabinoids, other delivery mechanisms, other ways that people can leverage the cannabis plant for a better life. And that's, we're going to hopefully see some traction there. And some things I can't talk about, but hopefully will soon.
Yeah. I got the sense that we weren't going to go further into what you were
No, I can't right now, but there's some great stuff coming up that is not THC related. That is, but is still tied to cannabis or hemp or some variation of the cannabinoid.
What about the creativity thing? Talk about that. That's not even product based.
On our social, the Cannabis X Creativity.
Yeah.
So that's actually great. I'll give Lily Colley, who's one of our marketing coordinators and handles a lot of our social, I'll give her full credit. She is into that scene. She loves arts and entertainment, and she also believes, like we all do, that there's a very significant intersection between that and cannabis, whether it's musicians and their relationship with cannabis or art that is, either appealing related to cannabis or that, is fueled by cannabis. And there's just a lot of crossover, not to mention the fact that part of our goal from a destigmatization standpoint is to demonstrate that, and this goes back to what I said about Austin, that, you can leverage cannabis and still be out there engaging in life and grabbing the bull by the horns and, being informed and being part of the community. And arts and entertainment is a big part of that. So we wanted to create sort of a separate lens through which to see cannabis, and this cannabis creativity is it's her brainchild. But we're looking at art, entertainment, various lifestyle segments, and really trying to highlight those as part of the Dixie culture.
Back to the what you learned in Austin, as far as that's concerned. So you guys are just, every day there's something new coming out. Every day there's a different product. Every day there's a new thought. Every day there's a new thing. It's got to be exhausting.
It is. It is exhausting. It's like drinking from a fire hose, and it makes it challenging to move forward. Because it's hard to focus on that one thing that you're trying to get accomplished, because 27 other things come up in the meantime. And because there's so much energy in the space, you also have the sense of like, oh, I don't want to pass up this opportunity that might be this great thing that, 2 weeks from now I'll go, shit, why didn't I respond to that email? Why didn't I move forward with this thing?
Should have just done it, yeah.
And so it becomes exhausting, it becomes overwhelming, and at some point you just have to go, okay, stop, focus, get done with what I need to get done with, and we'll move on to the next thing.
Right. So in regards to moving on to the next thing, just industry-wise, your point of view on where things are going. You're a marketing guy, so you think differently than a product guy, than a CEO, than what do you see down the line here? We've got various states coming on line as far as medical. We've got various ballot initiatives coming online as far as medical and rec. Just generally and globally, or even domestically, where do you think we're going with all this? 2016, 2017, 2018, or do you not even get involved in that?
Did you ever watch the show Getting Dug with High?
Yes.
I was just thinking that these interviews would be much more interesting if you conducted them that way.
Indeed. That's Doug Benson for anyone that cares, but go on.
Yeah, he's, I sometimes, some of my friends don't get that show at all, and I watch it, and I don't laugh out loud, but it makes me giggle.
Indeed,
I'll absolutely get involved with it. I mean, I mentioned, legalization efforts and really being not only aware of, but actually actively involved in a lot of that is part and parcel of who we are and what we do. I mean, that is the future of cannabis. We have to be involved. So in terms of what I see, it's going to continue to be a slog for a while. I mean, Tripp likes to say he has happy years, and he believes that there'll be federal capitulation by 2017.
Those are his words exactly, by the way.
I know.
Yeah,
I've heard him enough times.
Right, exactly.
I think that I think that we're moving rapidly. I mean, interestingly, today of all days, when SCOTUS announced equal rights for gay marriage
across the country, blows the mind.
Right, absolutely blows the mind, and shows you that what a year ago or 2 years ago seemed impossible, and like a state by state, battle by battle, slog, overnight, boom. Now cannabis is a little different, and there's other things that have to occur in order for that to happen, but it's pretty amazing, right?
Yeah. And
I think that is an outside potential, right? That could happen where all of a sudden there's something that presses the issue and decision is made, and that Band-Aid is ripped off all at once, and we're able to move forward. But in the event that doesn't happen,
tomorrow,
right now, what it requires from us is to be cognizant of every single state and every single initiative, to be proactive in how we engage in those states. So making sure that we're involved in the legislation in California for the 2016 initiatives, making sure that we're aware of what's going on in Arizona, and that if we go into a market like Oregon or Washington, that we understand their rules and regs, so that we're following those to a T, so that we can be maintain our leadership role no matter the market that we go into. And that takes a lot of focus and work and effort.
And you're doing it. And we thank you for it. Yeah, slowly but surely, and also extremely quickly.
In some ways.
Yeah, so like we need packaging switched on every single product in the next 3 months.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Sure, not a problem. The last two questions are the questions that we kind of ask everybody, and they are, what has most surprised you in cannabis? And then what has most surprised you in life? And you brought up your first son, and we know that you have 3 kids.
That's some deep shit, man.
It's really deep. It's really deep. But, I mean, you can do what has most surprised you in cannabis. I mean, right? It's been about 1.5 years, 2 years with the agency stuff.
Yeah, but there's so much that surprises me in cannabis on a daily basis. To pick one or two, one thing is tough.
Well, so what I love is we talked to Mason DeVert yesterday, and we asked him that question, or I shouldn't do the royal we. I asked him that question, and he said nothing. And then I'm talking to you today, and you say basically everything.
Well, then that probably is partly his length of time doing this and mine, right?
Right.
So I'm still going, really? Did that just happen? And that's really a comment more about some of the day-to-day stuff that I see going on.
Sure.
But I think what has really surprised me is the number of people that are truly benefiting from cannabis. And that sounds naive to say. And
No, it doesn't.
I was aware of cannabis legalization efforts prior, and have always been a proponent of legalization. But until I got really deep into the industry and I saw the emails and I met the people and I, understand truly the spectrum of marijuana consumers, I probably didn't realize that it wasn't just about getting high.
Yeah.
And even for those who are getting high, it's not just about getting high in some cases. For some it is.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But, for some it is about requiring that level of relaxation and de-stressing, or, some enhancement to their creativity, or it's truly, medicinal in the sense they're dealing with significant pain or Crohn's or, cancer in some way. And of course, as a company, I'm not allowed to say that, it cures any of those things,
Nope.
but
Right.
there's enough anecdotal information for me that I feel like it's pretty convincing.
Well, I was in Medicine Man yesterday, right? And I'm standing there next to Pete Williams, who's talking to a patient on the medical side. And he asked her about one of the strains and how it was doing for her. And she said, it's great. I took it and I didn't have a seizure for 2 days. And I have heard that anecdotally, but to see the patient and hear the patient say that directly about cannabis is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. And it really means that this is an industry with purpose, So I'll let you get back to work. How about that?
So there's that,
Yeah.
right? From an industry perspective.
Yeah.
And I'd say on a life perspective.
Okay, there you are doing this. What has most surprised you in life?
Yeah, I don't have an answer yet.
Oh, okay. But you're going to try to tackle it.
I'm going to try. I think what has most surprised me in life is, and this is probably a function of my age, right? Being soon to be 45, as we discussed earlier.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, thanks. I have a different perspective on things than maybe I did when I was 30. But what surprised me most in life is that the way that path I mentioned earlier, that occurs without really, sometimes seemingly without your intention, but yet these things occur that take you to these certain points, and that I'm also surprised sometimes that so few people are really comfortable with who they are and what they have and what they're about.
It's weird, right?
It is
Like adults you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, adults older than me, some younger than me, but so few people are like, this is who I am. I'm happy with where I am, and that's the end of it.
It is, as they say, what it is, right?
Yeah.
Joe Hodas, thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
You guys are doing great work. Really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me.
All right.
So there you have it. Joe Hodas, Dixie Elixirs. He such a good guy. He's real people. He cares about what he's doing. And Dixie's a great brand. He helped build that brand to where it is. He continues to help build it to where it's going. So once again, Joe Hodas, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it. And we'll see you down the line.